Hello, my name is Craig Rainey, and I've been in the construction industry for more than 40 years. When homeowners tell me the story of their project, oftentimes it sounds like this. It doesn't have to be that way.
Oh, wise guy, eh?
And most builders would say that. Welcome to Remodeling Wisdom. I'm Craig Rainey. Let's get started.
Well, good morning, everyone. Really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me today. This episode is one that, and let me just put it this way. What happens as a homeowner when you have a remodeling project and you've done everything right? In your mind, everything has been done exactly. I listened to that Craig Rainey guy, and I did exactly what he said, but things still aren't going well. You still have some problems. And you're like, man, so what step did I miss? Because the devil's in the details. We know that. And what I'd like to share with you today is a travail that one of my clients is going through, and there is an answer. And I'm not going to say it's not my fault. I'll let you decide that. But before we get to that, I'd like to encourage you to hit the like button, the subscribe button, the follow button, whichever. Every platform's got something different. And please, be a part of the family. That way, every time we have a new episode, you'll know. If you'd like to contact me directly, most of the platforms do not have a comment button because of how podcasts are, so it doesn't get to me. But you can contact me directly by email at craig@craigrainey.com. And I do read those regularly, and I welcome those emails. A lot of times I get a lot of content ideas from it. And it's always good to know what's important to you so that I can address it in almost every case. What's important to you is important to many others who listen. And so we're able to share that answer. And of course, I'll answer you back with email, but a lot of times I get some great ideas for episodes on that. But please contact me. Now, if you'd like to cyberstalk me, and I encourage that, you can find out about all things Craig Rainey. Go to my website, which is craigrainey.com. You'll find out a lot of cool things about me that you didn't know. But anyway, that way you can know who I am and, put a face to the voice. If you're a fan of the written word as opposed to the spoken word, we do have a blog site, which is called the same thing. It's entitled Remodeling Wisdom, Advice from the Pro, same as this podcast. And that way I use it kind of as an auxiliary. I add content to it so that you have visual references, this kind of thing. And a lot of times if I'm doing some DIY information, I'll throw photos up or I'll link you to a video or that kind of thing. So you can obviously get on that anytime you want to. And that website is texasbuilderblog.com or craigsbuilderblog.com. Either one of those URLs will get you there. And while I'm at it, may I say thank you? I really appreciate you spending a moment with me. You've got a lot of choices in the remodeling podcast world and a lot of good information and some folks that are very knowledgeable. And I'm very flattered and heartened and thankful that you chose me for this moment to get a little information and to spend a little time with. So thank you. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. So without further ado, let's go. Let's get going on this thing. So you have a remodeling project, and you've been listening to Remodeling Wisdom, Advice from the Pro with Craig Rainey for several episodes, and you say, okay, I've got my builder involved, I've got my project going, and I've got an architect working on things, I've got my interior designer working on my finishes, and everything's going exactly as it should be. And I know good and well that I will not allow my builder knows this, but I know because I'm a knowledgeable homeowner. I'm not going to start any demo on my house until all my finishes and all my fixtures are on site, or at least in a storage unit close by where they're protected. But at least when we get to that point, we have our material ready to go. We're not waiting. And that's a perfect world. That is how I like it to go with my clients. That is the way it typically does go with my clients. And the criticism you will get from my job will never be that it's taking too long. In fact, one of my clients said the other day, he says, man, you're going too fast. I can't keep up, and you don't hear that from remodelers very often, but that has a little bit to do with my business model, but a whole lot to do with the the methods and the techniques that we talk about. My material's on the ground. So I have a client right now that we did our due diligence up front. We started the design. I started it, and then and we got the general idea of where we were going to go with it. And then and let me preface this. So we had decided on all the fixtures, what the trim was going to be, what type of windows we're going to do. We're renovating the inside, and then we're going to put a room addition on, kind of a sunroom thing, and it's going to have a patio outside with an outdoor kitchen and a cover and ceiling fans, and it's beautiful. Really, really great build. I want to buy the house and live in it myself. It's a really good design. About 3 months into it, because we'd already started the demo and we knew where we were going with this thing, the homeowner hired an interior designer. At first, he and his wife were going to do all the color palette on this thing, and particularly his wife. And anyway, I guess it became a little much, so they hired an interior designer. And back in the unpolitically correct days, an interior decorator, we used to call it, we old guys. And basically, it's somebody who selects your color palette. It's finishes, that kind of thing. And this interior designer they hired. Now, I don't know her, and she's not one of my approved vendors, so I know this. I've cyber stalked her, and she is highly recommended, highly credentialed. This person, this is, New York School of Art. This is somebody who is really, really impressive if you look at their credentials. And anyway, so they spent probably 2 months putting together just the initial color palette, and I'm getting it piece by piece. I'm not getting a whole lot of it. Paint, what type of fixtures, tile patterns are starting to come in, and those are okay. Typically, paint's not a problem. You go to Sherwin-Williams, you can get any paint color you want as long as they have an SW code on it. Tile, as long as it's not come from Italy, which I had a client that we got all of our tile from Italy and gold-plated fixtures, believe it or not. I joke about it, but we had them. And so we had to order those, and they came in. We didn't start the project, obviously, till those came in, and it took 2 months to get them. But most of those finishes, you'll get fixtures in 7 to 10 days if they don't have them in stock. You'll get tile about the same, depending on where you get your tile. But we were throwing a curve on this one. And so on this job, we are taped and floated. We finished up the end of last week, and we are now in the paint process. And what I do is I paint my walls, and then I put my flooring in, and then I put my trim in after the flooring, because I'm not a fan of quarter round. I don't like to put baseboard in, then flooring, then put more trim, which is quarter round, to cover the edge of that flooring. What I do is I put my flooring in. I paint first, obviously, because I don't want dry fall on my flooring, and I also don't want to have to mask it off. Anyway, so I do the flooring, then I go in and I do all my trim. And anyway, so we went to, I went to the owner and said, hey, designer, I'm not talking to this interior designer, but has she put together the finishes on the trim? What kind of, make those selections yet? And he says, yeah. So he texted me over these, the baseboard and the window door casing. And I went, wow, okay. This is, it's hemlock, which I know is not readily available. Typically, if you want pine or any kind of finger joint type of trim, you can get that readily available. But this stuff is hemlock. And anyway, so I contacted the lumber yard. First, I had to go with the manufacturer. And the manufacturer's Metrie, Metrie, and they're out of Vancouver, Canada. Near and dear to my heart because my wife is from Vancouver. But anyway, so there are only a few lumber yards here in the Austin area that sell that. And so I gave him a ring and said, look, I'm looking for this. I had the SKU numbers and everything else. And so the guy at the lumber yard said, well, I'll give you a call back. So he gave me a call back, and he said, well, Craig, I got bad news for you. He says, they haven't manufactured any of this stuff. It's hemlock, and so they don't mill it and keep it on hand because, not only will it might twist, but also, if they don't sell it, then they'll have to discount, they'll lose money on this thing. So, if it's finger joint or whatever else, I can get it, but this is going to take some time to get because I talked to the manufacturer and they're going to have to mill it. And I said, okay, well, how long do you think? He says, well, we're looking at 3 to 4 weeks probably till you get this trim. And I went, oh man, I'm going to have flooring going in. My paint will be done by end of this week, and my flooring is the following week, so that's 2. So we're going to be setting for a week if we get it ordered right away, a week or 2 with doing nothing, waiting on trim to show up. And anyway, that's the situation that I'm finding myself in this on this particular project. Now, is it my fault? I don't like to make excuses because ultimately I am the liaison. I'm the manager. I'm the guy that runs this thing, and so everything ultimately falls on my shoulders. And it's my responsibility to get these things done. My commitment to my clients is that I protect their money and I protect their project. And so anyway, I did talk to the client. Said, look, this is what we're looking at, and he says 3 to 4 weeks if we get an order immediately. But my experience shows that we're probably looking at maybe 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks before it comes in. And I said, I just want to manage your expectations. That's why I'm saying it. Ladies and gentlemen, the number one thing, actually it's number 1 and 2, but the number 1 and 2 thing that you're concerned about as a homeowner in the order of importance is number 1 is budget and number 2 is time. Whenever you're planning a project, whenever I talk to my potential clients, I say, okay, well, first thing, have you come up with a budget on what you want on this? Do you have an idea of how much money you want to invest in this project? And that's always a dangerous question for a remodeler to ask a homeowner, because they're going, okay, so if I say $100,000, your price is going to be $99,999.99. And if you don't trust your builder, that is going to be the auto response. But that's why you pick a good builder, and you don't base your builder on price. You base your builder on their level of expertise and understanding of the business and their experience, and whether you get along with them, that gut feeling that you get. Are they good people? Are they somebody that is going to have your back, that's going to protect your money in your project? So as I've said before, pick your builder first. And I digress, but we'll catch up again. And so with my clients that I'm speaking with, we go through the vetting process before we ever start talking the project. We get to know each other. It's kind of like when I was single, I would get to know the girl before I decided to marry her. I'd get to know her, I'd date her a little bit. We'd go out a few times, see if it was a fit. And you do the same thing with your builder. Is you want to get to know them, and they want to get to know you, and it goes both ways. And if the fit is there, then you can have this conversation. And ladies and gentlemen, you have to have that relationship, or you can't build this. And that's really. I think that a lot of people go into the remodeling process with the preconceived understanding that you're just not going to get along with a remodeling contractor. He or she is a necessary evil in this thing, and they have all the context, and they know everything. They have all the secrets, they have all the tools and everything else. So I've got to put up with them to get this done. As a homeowner, I just got to put up with a builder and the remodeler. Well, that's true if you're basing your decision on your remodeler on price. If you're going with the cheapest bidder, you're going to get the worst remodeler. There's a reason they're going cheap, and there's a reason that they are pricing it the way they are. And with that comes a lot of baggage. And I'm not saying you should pay for the most expensive one, because that is a problem too. I've mentioned it many times. You're going to get 3 prices. Pardon me, 3 prices when you bid. You're going to get a low price, a really high price, and a middle price. The low price, typically, the builder is desperate. They're trying to get the work, and they're willing to I need the price. I got to get the lowest price, and I'll get it done. The greatest number of bad experiences, in fact, this is 90 plus percentile of bad experiences that homeowners have with remodelers, is because the remodeler runs out of money before they finish your project. And it's because they went with the lowest price, they misbid it, or they just lowballed it, holding the open, like in commercial, where you can make that up with change orders, because that's how you make your money in commercial construction. You're the lowest bidder, and then you just build it all up with change orders, because they're guaranteed change orders. Or in the case of high price, where it's really high price, it means that your builder lacks experience, and they're afraid of the job. They don't know how to bid it because they've never seen anything like it, or it's very complex and it's intimidating, very technical. I find this a lot if somebody's removing bearing walls. I had one customer I talked to that said, well, I know you can't remove this wall for any less than about $20,000 because, it's a weight bearing structure. And I said, okay, well, who told you that? And because it came out, I think the whole thing was about $4,300 material and labor to take that bearing wall out and to put I'm talking about my cost. And to replace that structure, because, by the way, every wall in your house is bearing. It's weight bearing. In the vernacular of the industry, what a bearing wall is is a wall that bears the weight of the roof structure above. That's what a bearing wall is. But all your walls, even that little partition wall in the bathroom, it's bearing the weight of ceiling joists and sheetrock and probably some electrical up there. I mean, those are the things. It's all bearing weight. If you were to pull a partition wall out of your bathroom or out of a closet, you would have things falling down. It would be bad. And so when somebody refers to a bearing wall, they're using a technical term having to do with the wall, one of the structural walls. It's bearing the weight of the structure above it. And that's all it has to do with. And I would say this, any remodeler with any experience and understanding, well, not any, but that has adequate experience and understanding, could turn your entire first floor, your entire house into a warehouse space with no interior walls if they know what they're doing. I know I could do it. And so, you know, it's not that big a deal. But this particular individual I spoke with, the reason the builder they talked to said $20,000 was because they had no clue how it'd be done, and they were going to count on their framer to make this thing happen. And so they go, well, I don't know, I got to protect myself. So $20,000, which, I mean, come on, even if you're doubling, which most remodelers do, if you're going to double the cost of material and labor, that's a $10,000 event right there. And it shouldn't be billed that way because, I mean, it's something that all framers do all the time. And I mean, it's something I do constantly. It's like cutting concrete with your plumber. A lot of people go, oh no, you know, we got to move the shower here. And in every bathroom I do, I move showers and toilets around. And so we cut a lot of concrete, and it's not a big deal. Even with post-tension, it's really not a big deal. You know, post-tension foundations, it's not a big deal to cut concrete and move plumbing. But to a lot of builders who've never done it, they go, oh man, that's going to be expensive. And that's big. I can't believe, you know, but so you need to make sure that you've got a builder that's got the experience. And so if they've got a really high price, it means they're scared of the job, afraid of the job. If it's a low price, they're desperate. And I don't know why anybody in this economy would be desperate. The ones in the middle are typically those that say, okay, I've seen this before, and this is about what my cost of material and labor is, and I build it up, and that's a cost they give you. They give you that price. So the reason I'm saying this is, you don't want to pick your builder based on price. Price is a cull factor when you're getting going. Say, okay, well, you know, pick your builder based on their experience and that gut feeling you got. Use what God gave you. Use that intuition. Use what's already built into you to help you make that decision. Okay, so let's move on. So with this, if you've done everything and you've got your architect and you've got your interior designer and your builder's not involved, that architect the architect has no idea what building materials and what services cost. If you talk to unless they're going to Home Depot, this architect's going to Home Depot with his wife on the weekends, he can look at the stack of OSB, which those of you who are fans, you know, that's the best way to figure out what lumber prices are. You walk into a Home Depot or a Lowe's and they got this stack of OSB, which looks like plywood, usually green, red, or blue on the ends, and it'll say OSB. 4x8, 7/16 sheet, $12 a sheet. Now, back in the day, it's starting to be old news. It was $8.38 a sheet. $8 a sheet was pretty normal. During COVID, it went up to nearly $50 a sheet. Then it dropped back down after COVID because of, quote, supply chain to about $26 a sheet. But you can pick it up now for between $12 and $16 a sheet. That's about where it's settled. And as long as you see that OSB at between $10 and $15 a sheet, lumber is at a reasonable rate. Now, what I'm saying is, again, if your architect goes into Home Depot, you know, goes with a wife checking on garden stuff or doing stuff around the house, they'll know the pricing. But the architect will not know what your plumber is going to charge to change a half-inch water line to 1 inch. They're not going to know what your electrician's going to charge to pull out that 100-amp main service and upgrade it to 200, which most cities will not grandfather. They're going to make you do it if you do a certain percentage of electrical work inside your house. They're going to make you change that service out. They don't know these things. So if you contact an architect and say, look, I want you to do this design, and I want you to build it, they're going to build what is beautiful and what they like, what they're reading in the journals and the trade magazines, and what their other clients are. They're going to design that. They're not going to design based on your budget. And you need to make sure that you build based on those two most important things. Number one is your budget, how much you want to invest in this thing or what you can afford. And number two is how long it's going to take to get that project complete. Those are the two things you want to look at, money and time. Well, your architect doesn't have any clue of either one of those. They don't know how long it takes. They don't know how much it costs. And they have a very specialized, very important skill set, but it doesn't include that. Make sure you pick your builder and your builder, I would work with whatever architect or interior designer your builder has approved, because in my case, I approve those folks based on, first off, affordability. I want to make sure that they are competitive, because there are many, like this interior designer I'm talking about, that I know she's $250 an hour. I know she is, because of her credentials, the website, her clientele. Most of my interior designers are between $100 to $150 an hour. And I typically will work a deal with my clients with them where it's a flat rate, because I'm not a fan at all of open-ended contracts. I like to say, okay, so your interior design work is going to cost this much money, and that's it. It won't go up. Your architectural design is going to cost you this much money. I don't charge by the hour on that or anything else, and my vendors don't. So, I mean, these things are important because your builder can establish those relationships. You as a homeowner will probably do one, I know on that one house you're doing, you'll probably just do that one remodel. So there isn't a lot of incentive for any trades or any premium vendors to work with you, because you have one project. But a builder, I do scores of projects a year, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year worth of business with each one of my vendors. And so I've got a lot of sway with them, and they do what I want them to do. And my interior designers, I know how they charge, but I'll say, look, I'll send you all my interior design work because you're a good designer, but I want you to give me a flat rate on my clients. Full renovation, I'll give you this much money. Kitchen, this much money, a little bit lower. Bathroom, a little bit less. And they'll do it. They'll say, okay, well, I'll give you that flat rate. So instead of paying $25,000 for an interior designer, you're paying half of that. And it's guaranteed, no matter how big the project is, it's not going to go up. And I also make them give me a final sheet that has all finishes on it, where they found it, and how much it is per square foot. Those are the things that are important. Let me share one thing with you since we're on this, and it's a dirty secret. And I'm going to get so much email from angry interior designers and builders and everything else. So I'm a member of ProSource, and ProSource it's a good resource for they've got everything. And for those of you who aren't familiar, there's not one in your area. There are others. There are other companies like this. But what they do, these companies, is they have sales staff in there, and some have interior designers that are, that'll help you pick out your finishes. And so your builder or your interior designer sends you to them, because they'll say, okay, we'll go pick out your finishes, pick what you want. And these places are huge. They've got cabinets and tile and wood flooring and paint colors and carpet samples and countertops and everything else. And so you can go pick everything that you want. And the interior designer, typically they'll go, okay, well, these are the things I've picked out from them. And so you go buy it from, in this case, ProSource. Now, here's the dirty secret. And I say dirty secret because these interior designers should tell you this, in my opinion, but they don't, is that ProSource has two prices. ProSource has one price, which they'll give you a 10% discount on average to the client of the builder or the interior designer that goes in. And so when they do that, there is a commission that they pay the interior designer or the builder of 10% on top of that. So typically, if an interior designer is only charging you $5,000 for your design, they're making money on the backside off of ProSource or someone like that, because they'll cut them a commission check. Now, the reason I say it's a dirty secret is not because it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's good. It's a revenue source. You're still getting a discount, but it's not about the money. It's about the quality. ProSource has a high quality in most cases of materials that they provide, and they're very responsible, very very reliable, and they'll stand behind behind their products, warranties, and everything. So it's a very safe place. But I'm just saying that keep in mind that this is the reason these interior designers will work there, is because they make money on the front and the back side. It's so delicate for me to talk about this, because it makes me sound like I'm bad-mouthing those who do it, and I'm not bad-mouthing them. Now, what do? If I use ProSource with my clients, I just give them the full discount. It's just what I do, because I make enough money in what I do that I don't need to hide anything. I don't need to make that extra hush money on the side. I don't need kickbacks or anything like that. I just don't do it. But that's my decision. And I'm just saying that if your interior designer is doing that, it's part of their income. They're probably giving you a discount up front on what they're doing so they can make that money in the backside. So in other words, your materials are still helping pay for that. So there's a certain amount of value. It's kind of like when I told you about most remodelers, all remodelers that are successful are going to take the cost of material and labor, and they're going to mark it up 100%, and that's a retail price they're going to quote you. Okay, and at first you go, oh man, it seems like so much. Well, that's a 50% margin on a gross. But after they pay taxes and they pay their overhead and marketing and their, any expenses they've got, your typical remodeler is going to make between 15 to 20% net profit. And that ain't bad. I mean, that's a very reasonable profit margin, and it's one that I think as a homeowner you should find acceptable. Anything lower than that, I mean, what's the point of being in business if you're not going to at least make that? So anyway, I'm just saying this to you to let you know that when it comes to architects and interior designers, that interior designer is going to pick what they want. Now, in this case, my client's interior designer, everything's from ProSource, and she has everything that they're getting is the most expensive thing that ProSource sells. Even to cabinets, we're doing white oak cabinets, the most expensive cabinets you can get. And then my painters who they've got gravity sprayers, they do cabinet finishes all the time. They're going to have to finish these cabinets. So the cabinets where we had a budget somewhere in the neighborhood of cost-wise about $30,000 for cabinets, they're going to come in at $75,000 in cost. Maybe 60, if I'm just guessing here because I haven't gotten the quote back from it. But white oak, and then my painters are going to paint these cabinets, and there's some that are stained, some are painted, and that's probably going to be another $7,500 just in cost for them to paint those cabinets. So, I mean, you really need to have your builder involved when these decisions are being made, and this trim. So the trim, oh man, we're not going to get it for weeks. It's very expensive. We've got arches, and this is another thing, and I want to point this out. When you're doing your window casings, and you've got this very exclusive special order casing, well, how are you going to make those arches look the same as the straight runs on your windows? Because on the arches, they've got to be made by the trim guy. Your trim subcontractor or vendor is going to have to manufacture these arches, which means they're going to have to shape or route the outside edges of those arches so that they match the existing material. So, I mean, there's a lot more expense there. It's trying to find the tooling for it. I've got a call right now into the lumberyard saying, "Hey, can we get some guidance on how we get our bits for the for the profile on this particular trim?" So there are a lot of moving parts in this thing, and you really need your builder involved in it. Because if I had been involved with this interior designer from the beginning and been a key part of this, I would have said, look, we're going to have to stick with this because our budget on this is X amount. That's where the owners are, and I appreciate, you've got a great eye, and you're obviously very skilled and talented at what you do, but we can't do champagne on a beer budget. And I hate to use colloquialisms, but that's what it comes down to. These folks have a limited amount of money. And, if your interior designer is spending all that money because they're not designing based on your budget, and then they're ordering and they're selecting all these special order items, and they're not ordering these items based on when you want to get back into your house. The architect's doing the same thing. You want to make sure that those things are accounted for. And that's where your builder, your general contractor, your remodeling contractor, it's integral that you have them involved with that so they can protect your money in your project, and they can handle the time and the budget issues they're going to come up when these premium vendors start doing their talent. They start applying their skill to what we're doing. And so you need that representative, you need that intermediary, that advisor to help you on this thing. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope this has helped you some. And I do encourage your comments, Craig@CraigRainey.com. You have to avoid those things which make you miserable in your job. And I hear so many nightmare stories about, oh, we did this. I heard one the other day, this weekend. I was sitting at a place we were having to get together. It was a birthday party, and I was listening to, oh, you're a remodeler. Oh man, our remodeler is just horrible and everything else. And I hate to hear that, because the reason they're saying that is because their experience has been poor, because the remodeler probably didn't put their needs and their wishes first. And you have to do that. And the communication, if you can't meet it, like in this case with me, I'm having solid, continual communication with my clients saying, look, this is where we are in this. This is where we are with the cabinets. This is where your budget's going to go. This is where we are with the trim work. I'm working on it. This is what it's looking like. And I'm keeping them informed. And I ask, is there any way that we can go back to a more standardized trim, something that's a little easier to get, that's a little less expensive and a little easier to install? And, I could save you money on the material and the labor side. And this is the case. They absolutely are dialed in and drinking the Kool-Aid. This interior designer is skilled and great. And we want to have a house that has her signature on it. This is one of her signature designs. And I said, okay, well, you're going to have to dig deep. I didn't tell them this. They're going to have to dig deep on the wallet to make sure that this happens. And that's their choice. It's not my choice. All I can do is I can guide. So is it my fault? That's what I said at the beginning. Is it my fault? I don't know. I felt like we went through the process. But if you're not going to follow the advice of your general contractor, if you're not going to heed those warnings and listen to the experience that's coming from from which this advice is coming from, well then, where does the onus really fall? Anyway, again, as a homeowner, ultimately you're the boss. You are the one that makes these decisions, but make sure you surround yourself by people who put you first and put your needs first and your goals monetarily and time-wise first, and you'll have a much better experience. Appreciate you.